Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. And we'll see how this goes. You know, I pray, and like I said at the end of the description of the video that I did earlier, and hopefully it'll stay up or be okay. You know, I don't know all the rules and regs, but it's a parody, so anybody can do a parody of a song. But, you know, don't want to infringe on apologetics lyrics either. And I gave them credit. In the thing, I gave them a shout out and a, link to their website and everything. So it's free advertising. And I really, 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 really want to get their flash drive. They have it on sale right now. And for those who have donated before, and my family has donated, hundreds of dollars. We've gone to concerts many times and bought all their CDs. I think that we have a complete collection type thing. And my daughter Susie tried to copy them for me, but it didn't work. Or technotards. Either she messed up or I can't play them. Anyway, so yeah, that was another time in another place. So, hey, for what it's worth here, I want to talk about a character. And this is from an article, and I'll put a link for it below. This was written by Zach Hunt. The Curious Faith of Puddleglum the Marshwiggle. Okay. And this scene here is where they the children first meet him. One sec. Get some support and a little bit of insulation for my back. This is where these two children first meet him, and I'm sure that, I don't know, I doubt very many people are familiar with the story. They might be. If I had a favorite book, this is it, of the Narnian series. Reason being is because it's just one of the most overwhelmingly hopeless tasks, ever given, even in all the books. So they're set on a journey to go find a prince that they don't know if he's still alive, with help from a guy they don't know, and to a land that's approaching winter in the north, and to a city that might not exist. Yeah, so anyway, we'll get into that a little bit. This is, the kid there is Eustace Scrubb, and the girl is Jill Pole. So just a quick introduction there, and you'll notice the webbed feet on the Marshwiggle. This is a swampy land. Those are little wigwams, about 3 in the background you can see. Anyway, he's a tall, stringy, character that eats boiled eels and stuff like that. Alrighty, so enough of that. I'm going to move down here because it'll be there for the rest of the duration here, pretty much. So this Zach Hunt says, I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm the 32-year-old man who still enjoys the occasional children's book. Well, mostly just the Chronicles of Narnia. I'm not perusing the children's section of my local Barnes & Noble to find something new to read, but I do enjoy the unexpected depth of Lewis's stories. And I'll just say I first read them. I was studying for finals in college, and I read them straight through, and I turned around and read them straight through again and didn't study for my finals. Anyway. And then we ended up having a costume party. Tolkien and Narnian costume party. And so then one of the speakers came to chapel, and, visiting speaker, and says, how many people here are familiar with, Reepicheep from Narnia? And I raised my hand. I was sitting toward the front, my hand shot up like a rocket. And then I turned around both directions and saw that I was the only person in the entire college, even though 50 people had been to that party, that acknowledged that they loved Narnia. Very weird. So, one of my favorite volumes is C.S. of Lewis's Chronicles of the Silver Chair, mostly because I love the eternal pessimist Puddleglum. He's hard not to love. Always convinced doom is just around the corner, Puddleglum somehow remains incredibly enduring as he joins Eustace Scrubb and Jill Pole in their search for Rilian, the lost Prince of Narnia. There are many memorable Puddleglum scenes in the Silver Chair, though there are many memorable scenes. His shining moment comes towards the end of the book when, as Puddleglum himself would have predicted, doom walks through the door, just as our heroes begin celebrating the successful discovery of the lost prince. Just as they're making plans to leave the underground kingdom where they found Prince Rilian, the lost prince's captor, the Lady of the Green Kirtle, walks in and bars their escape. What, the Green Witch. Rather than immediately engaging the escapees in combat, the Lady of the Green Kirtle, with the help of a fragrant fire and a magical musical instrument, tries to convince Puddleglum and company that neither Narnia nor Aslan nor anything in the world above ground is real, and therefore they have no reason to leave. It's a fascinating scene that culminates with the heroic act and inspiring speech from the least likely of heroes, Puddleglum. On the brink of succumbing to the lady's deception, Puddleglum stomps out the magical fire with his bare feet and delivers one of the most inspiring declarations of faith I've ever read. "One word, ma'am," he said, coming back from the fire, limping because of the pain. "One word. All you've been saying is quite right. I shouldn't wonder. I'm a chap who always liked to know the worst and then put the best face I can on it. So I won't deny any of what you've said. But there's one more thing to be said. Even so. Suppose we have only dreamed or made up all those things. Trees and grass and sun and moon and stars and Aslan himself. Suppose we have. Then all I can say is that, in that case, the made-up things seem a good deal more important than the real ones. Suppose this black pit of a kingdom of yours is the only world. Well, it strikes me as a pretty poor one. And that's a funny thing when you come to think of it. We're just babies making up a game, if you're right. But 4 babies playing a game can make a play world which licks your real world hollow. And that's why I'm going to stand by the play world. I'm on Aslan's side, even if there isn't any Aslan to lead it. I'm going to live as like a Narnian as I can, even if there isn't any Narnia. So thanking you kindly for our supper, if these 2 gentlemen and the young lady are ready, we're leaving your court at once and setting out in the dark to spend our lives looking for Overland. Not that our lives will be very long, I should think, but that's a small loss, if the world's as dull a place as you say." And I gotta pause it here. Now obviously C.S. Lewis is using Puddleglum to not so subtly thumb his nose at atheism. But I think there's much more going on here than that. More than just pandering to his Christian readership, I think Lewis is making a fascinating and provocative claim about what real faith, or at least real Christian faith, looks like. For the uninitiated, Aslan serves as a Christ-like figure in the Chronicles of Narnia. Fidelity to, or faith in Aslan is, more or less, the Narnia equivalent of the path towards salvation. Though it's never really spelled out that way, in the final book of the series, The Last Battle, faithful Narnians and at least one surprise guest are welcomed into the Narnian version of heaven, while those that rejected Aslan are sent into darkness. Although Puddleglum does make an appearance in Narnian heaven, it's his response to the lady of the green kirtle in the silver chair that makes Puddleglum's faith so fascinating to me. According to Puddleglum, even if Narnia weren't real, even if Narnia and Aslan weren't real, he would still keep living as if they were, which sounds noble until you really think about it and realize how radical a claim he's making. As unbelievable as it might sound to evangelical ears, Puddleglum is saying he doesn't care all that much about eternal salvation. His focus is on the here and now. Throughout much of the church today, particularly in the evangelical circles I grew up in, the focus in life is essentially the complete opposite. What happens in this life, we're told, pales in comparison when compared to eternity. Our focus as Christians, we're told, should therefore be on eternity and where we're going. But Puddleglum's focus is not on eternity. He's focused on the present and on others besides himself. That's the other really curious thing about the eternal pessimist's faith. It's profoundly selfless. He's not living the faithful life just for what he can get out of it, that is salvation. Even if salvation, Aslan, wasn't real and there was no hope of heaven, Puddleglum would still live the same way. Why? Why believe in something that can't assure your salvation? Why live a certain way if it won't get you to heaven? Puddleglum longs for a better world in the here and now, not simply to escape somewhere else. Or you might say Puddleglum longs for thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And that's basically our text for the day. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth, in us, in our hearts, in our lives, in our minds and souls, as it is in heaven. There's something deeply Christian about Puddleglum's confession of faith that many of us self-professed Christians today would do well to learn from. Faith today has become incredibly self-centered. For all our lofty rhetoric about loving our neighbors, we're profoundly focused on self, on my salvation, my well-being, my safety, my prosperity, my life, my eternity. We live in a meocentric universe. Far too many people do live in a meocentric universe. Myocentric universe. Whether we realize it or not, we've adopted and sanctified a very American mentality that says, take care of yourself first, and the rest will follow. But for Jesus, the complete opposite is true. For Jesus, everything, including our salvation, hangs on how we love God and neighbor, not how much we love and care for ourselves. That is why his life led to the cross, and ours should as well. Christ died to self and called us to go and do likewise. Because the new creation cannot dawn if, like Adam and Eve, we're still focused on self. Rather than taking care of ourselves first and then going out into the world to do the work of the kingdom begins by dying to self first, and then continually putting the needs of others before our own. This is called altruism. Look it up. There's a theological term that I want to deal with, and I'll touch on it off and on. It is the idea of disinterested benevolence, and it's a way you can tell a true believer from a believer who is not a true believer. This is why we must stop thinking of the gospel as an escape plan. It's a call to participate in the building of a new world, in the bringing of heaven to earth. This is the sort of faith that Puddleglum is professing, one which tries to live out the hope he believes in, rather than waiting for the day when it might come to pass. Pie in the sky, by and by. Sure, he would benefit from a better world too, but without a deep love for those around him, even strangers from another world who show up claiming they've got a mission from God, Puddleglum would never have left his wigwam with people he did not know to risk his life to save a man he'd never met and who might not even be alive, to restore hope and a better future for his fellow Narnians whose names he would never learn. Imagine, this is a powerful, powerful world, and this is what word, it's a powerful world. There's a whole world here. Scripture says that God spoke, said, "Let there be light," and there was light. He spoke the worlds into existence. And scientists are actually verifying that. Real scientists, not the bogus Hollywood charlatan, magician, criminal, satanic imposters that call themselves scientists, who are atheists and Luciferians and very, very evil people by and large that believe in a false construct of reality and don't believe in the Bible's ancient Hebrew cosmology. Anyway, we will not go down that rabbit hole. Imagine what the church and the world would be like if we had faith like Puddleglum. Imagine. This is what I want everyone listening to me to start doing. Imagine. Imagine what would happen if we all chose to do the right thing and live the right way, and actually think of other people rather than ourselves, to take up our cross, to be willing to lay down our life for others, to live for the kingdom. Jim Elliot said, "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." It's been said that the simpler you can say something, the more powerful it is. And there's sayings that are one of the most powerful sayings you'll ever hear is all 2-letter words. Something I've lived by. If it is to be, it is up to me. Who else is going to do it? If you don't do it, who's going to do it? Some of you have equipment and tools and capability and knowledge and everything needed to do a massive amount of good, and you're sitting on it, doing nothing with it, helping nobody. There are people with hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars of resources at their disposal, at their fingertips, and they're sitting on it, doing nothing for anybody. And the sad thing is, in most cases, having been selfish, why would God bless you to save your life? I'm just asking a question. He might and he might not. I believe some people are driven by fear, and fear is not a good motivator. It is if it's a godly fear given, at the right time in the right place. Noah moved with fear, built an ark. Joseph had a dream, and out of fear for the child and his wife, he went to Egypt. But a lot of people are driven by fear. It says that the wicked flee when no man pursueth. And there's people that are running from things that are never going to happen. Very sad. And I believe I've seen that kill one lady. I don't think she's around, just had silly fears, stupid fears, unfounded fears, and because of that make extremely bad decisions. So imagine what the world would be like. Forget the rest of the world. There's a region here. Listen to my series on the maps of the Ozark Plateau. How to get to Goshen. Yeah. Listen to that, because this is almost completely surrounded by rivers. Rivers are borders. How can I say that any plainer? Everybody's talking about Missouri or Arkansas or Kansas or Oklahoma or Texas, and like there's anything to any of those regions. There isn't. Most of the states have artificial borders that were just put in place because of, the other state was already there. Why does Tennessee look like it does? Why does Kentucky look like it does? Both of them have rivers as borders. Anyway, look at Missouri. Just recap. It's almost completely surrounded by rivers, circular region. So imagine what it would be like if that area and the number of hundreds of thousands and millions of people that have already come here and are coming here. I mean, California is evacuating. There's a mass exodus going on. That's not to say they're all good people. A lot of this is just the last dregs of humanity. But there's got to be some good people left there. A lot of them are druggies and crackheads and whatever. But there's a lot of people that did not get out quite in time, and now they're having to leave. But you take the people. The reason I mention that is because one time on one group, 200 people, one lady said every week someone I know, good lady, good people, from Southern California is moving to the Ozarks. Multiply that times every state. Multiply that times, all the other internet groups. So anyway, so imagine if we all get together and start actually helping each other. Woo! Recently, one of the guys I've mentioned, a millennial man, went down and helped Pastor Joe, and that was one thing that came out big time when the last, whatever you want to call it, anniversary I had. The last anniversary I had with my, was a divorce. So, but anyway, the last time that we did anything was we went and spent time with a couple that were bed and breakfast people and friends, and they'd put us up and fixed us breakfast, fixed us lunch, took us out to dinner, didn't charge us anything. And then we went up and spent time with Pastor Joe and Katie up on his High Prairie Acres farm, and we had a great brainstorming session there. It was awesome. 3 things came out. People are clamoring to get together with other groups and to do work things and training, teaching and training, projects back and forth. And that's what happened. People went over to Pastor Joe's and helped him out do something. I don't know what it was, but whatever. Regardless. So anyway, imagine what might happen if our faith wasn't just about believing the right things. Let's get back on this. Believing the right things so we can get out of here and on our way to heaven. You got to believe the right thing. And that is so destructive. It's so destructive. And I'm not saying you should believe, if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. I have very, very set beliefs, and I haven't changed them since very, very early on, 75. I've changed a lot of other things. I've learned a lot of new things. I'm open to new truth. But I don't tend to go looking for gold nuggets in septic tanks like a lot of people do. There are generally not a lot of gold nuggets in septic tanks, sewers, trash bins. Imagine what would happen if instead our focus was on caring for others and transforming the here and now. We're also worried about what's going to happen in the future, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and the government's doing this and the bad guys are doing that, and we're so worried about ourselves. I got to be at 1,200 feet altitude because the whole world's going to flood. You know, the water's got 500 miles to get here. That's a lot of land. From the Rockies, from the East Coast, from the Appalachians, from the Gulf. 500 miles. A lot of land to soak up a lot of water in between there. I mean, it's just, I don't know. That one just, whatever. Not going to go any further there. But we have unfounded beliefs. We have unfounded fears. And that's something that needs to be allayed and laid to rest. And imagine what the future would look like if we stopped arguing with the lady of the green kirtle and start living like Jesus, whether we can prove God is real or not. Hallelujah to that one. Which leads us to the other important lesson we can learn from Puddleglum. Puddleglum doesn't waste a lot of time and energy debating with the lady of the green kirtle. In fact, he actually concedes that what she's saying may actually be true. Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't wonder. But as Lewis does so well throughout his many works, particularly in The Great Divorce, he uses Puddleglum to challenge our notion of the truth. For Puddleglum, truth isn't found in intellectual debate, but in a particular way of life. Whoa, that hurts. That burns a lot of people. That's going to fry, and literally fry, This is not real flame here, but, a lot of people. Because, I love what St. Francis said. He said that at all times, preach the gospel. And if necessary, use words, but most of the time it shouldn't be necessary. What your life is, what you do, is the gospel. These people, these men that are on groups and they just pontificate and they blather and they boast and they brag about, how holy they are and how bad you are and how demonic Jerry Diamond is and, just how evil this is and flat earth is demonic. Like, I don't know nothing about it, but I can say it's demonic, Yeah, whatever. So tell me why the earth is tilted at 66.6 degrees and travels around the sun at 66,666 miles an hour. And then in order to figure the curvature, you have to use a calculating decimal of 666. Yeah, who thought that one up? Oh, let's see. Luciferians, Newton, Copernicus, Galileo. Whatever. Women have written me on these groups when they get into an argument and they say, that guy, shit hits the fan or a wolf comes in, he will run and leave his family and his wife to the wolves. She said, a woman can read a man. And I wrote that one time. I made that statement that women had said that. And every time I do, a woman will write in and go, yeah, you're right, man. Women can read a man. And, yeah. So these braggarts, that's all they are, is braggarts. They're just braggadocio. They're empty. They're just empty shells. And all they can do is accuse. Gee, who accuses? Who's the accuser of the brethren? Yep. Happens. I've seen it before, pal. One guy did that, and the very thing I was talking about, I was talking about biorhythm, your circadian rhythm and grounding, earthing, and the just how healing it is, and I'm occultic. Jerry Diamond's demonic. He's occultic. Da 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 da. Well, within a short amount of time, and I hate to say it because I met her. I met him. She was at this meeting, and I met his wife, and she was a wonderfully just a sweetest, gentlest spirit. But she died of a massive heart attack. Which, if he had listened to me, I believe she'd still be alive. But very sad and very stupid, just ignorant. And it's happening again. And that's why I'm not on the archive, and that's why a lot of people aren't getting my message, because Mr. Ken Updegrove, Mr. Gatekeeper, Mr. Flat Earth is demonic, is calling the shots for, his form of reality, what we're dealing with here is exactly what's going on there. He has this, I call it the big, bad, evil-sounding, scary name cult. Everything it's not what he believes, he labels it demonic. And he says you're demonic and you're evil, and it's the second go around with this. Very sad, very ignorant, very stupid. But it's happening. So, and I'm just saying, he's classic gatekeeper. I would not be surprised if he did not go to. I asked him, what college did you go to? What university did you go to? Probably a Jesuit university. He's probably Jesuit trained. I don't know, but I'm just saying he's acting as a gatekeeper. Come to the Ozarks. Come be in community. God told him to start a community back in the 1975 or 85. Let's say 85. Ain't happened, and it never will. If he doesn't change his, theology. But his theology dictates that there's no way. If you have a bad foundation theologically, you're going to have a bad experience in reality, which is what you see in the Pacific Northwest, with Baldwin, Chucky the Baldwin, and James Wesley Comma Rawls. Their theology is severely flawed in my estimation, and that's why they're where they are, and that's why what's going to happen to them is going to happen to them. So, whatever. Listen to the series on the Ozark Plateau Refugium versus the Pacific Northwest Readout States, and shout out to Fletch from Ozark Tactical Homesteading, where they talk about the Ozarks, and they talk about, guess what, tactics and homesteading. There you go, you got it. So another shofarian down there, along with a few other notorious characters. The revolting man. Yeah, look at those channels, they're great. And there's a core of people there, there's a gathering core of people. I mean, Pastor Joe's got it all over. Everybody's got pushing 80,000, ballpark 80,000 subscribers, and doing great on Patreon. He knows how to do all this stuff. I'm like this, techno-tard that don't know how to do nothing. But I'm trying. I've got a few things working, finally figured a few things out. This recording program has been fabulous. So anyway, and I actually found out how to change the thumbnails. Sheesh, All right, so I can handle that a little bit better. Moving right along. For Puddleham, the truth of Aslan and Narnia can't be proven decisively through rhetoric. It has to be experienced. Experience life, Live it with and for other people. For Puddleham, faith in Aslan isn't an intellectual exercise. It's a way of being in and for the world. It's tempting to argue with every lady of the green kirtle that comes on our way and tries to prove why we're wrong about our faith. We want to prove why we're right and our critics are wrong. It's a natural defense mechanism, and maybe there are moments when debate is appropriate. Maybe there are situations that call for a vigorous, rational defense. But if we invested as much time and energy into actually living the Christian life as we do, defending its reasonableness, our faith wouldn't need so much defending in the first place. Ouch. Touché. Touché. Got you. True story. So, and on that, if we're talking about defending this and defending that, that's the subject of apologetics. And, Christian parody rock band apologetics, IX, with a capital A and a capital X, but anyway. But apologetics is a study of, defense and, presenting what you give an apology for apologia pro vita sua, apology for my life. Bishop, whatever his name was, kind of a liberal character, but, apologetics is defending your position, okay? We shouldn't need that as much. Now, here's the problem with it. It's been said, and this is a simple way to put it, You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? You can lead a Christian. You can lead a Christian to truth, but you can't make him think. So, truth has to be revealed. Now, I can teach you truth, but if you're not willing to listen, if you're not willing to experience it, if you're not willing to think about it with your own brain, using your own eyes, doing your own research, and feeling it in your heart, it's not going to happen. I can't force you. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Okay? I can't make that happen, and I won't. I don't try. I make jokes about Jersey's going to get here and she's going to use a female urinary device, and I'm going to find an electric fence for her to go, experience, because she only wants to learn herself. Well, okay, that can be handled. I've been hit by an electric fence, and I don't recommend it for anybody. A 20 joule. Don't do it with a 20 joule. Do it with something less powerful, because they say a 20 joule can kill, any more powerful than that can kill you. Well, that depends on how bad a shape were you in before, Well, my heart wasn't in good shape when I got hit. When I got hit with that thing. Anyway, yeah. All right, off of that topic. I'll go into a coma or a trance, or something. Don't think of it. Don't think of it. Don't look at the lights. All right. So, the idea of living here, living in the now, living for other people, you have, like I said, the idea of, you might look it up, disinterested benevolence. In other words, doing good without any regard to yourself. Doing good, even if it means, a negative thing to yourself, and I've been doing that, for a lot of years. Yeah, it's hurt that I'm not by my family, and it's hurt that my children, whatever, are ignoring me and whatnot. For the most part, they've got their own lives to lead, sure, but outright disrespect, outright dishonor in most cases. Grandchildren, that about killed me the first week or two. That was tearing me up big time. And then one day, I felt the Lord just really clear, could have been out loud, I am distancing you from your family so that you have time to do the work I've given you to do. And that's made all the difference in the world, because I felt that. I felt it. And just the love, the divine love that was there, and I just, as I say, I smiled this angelic smile, like, I don't know, I can't do it, but, and I just said, I love you, I love you, I love you, and it was just a real feeling of, okay, and that's taken me off of the whole grieving and hurting and pain and, just, I don't see my grandkids, And my son-in-law's been great about it. He's been, actually, he was the one that right away was just more, very, very sympathetic and whatnot. So, anyway, we need to imagine. We need to actually live. We need to actually do the things that need to get done. And everybody knows that this is this thing that does not compute with me. Everybody knows it's late. Everybody knows that it's time. Everybody knows that it's past time. Everybody knows that we don't have much time. Time. Everybody knows that. And yet we just plod along like nothing's happening. Comes the time, comes the man. And God has raised up a lot of people. And they're here. And there are other people out there that you are where you're at right now. Some of you may be not where you really want to be, but you will see people gathering around you. You know, tomorrow you might meet somebody and you'll know, no, this is a divine meeting, you know, and that you are going to be a leader. And, you know, because people will be gathering around. That triangle thing, let me pull that up. Okay, this blew me away. There's a map, several maps, 3 maps, several on a document titled, and if you want to send me your email, or I'll put my email out, or you can find it on some of my videos if I forget on this one, but dmnds2001 at yahoo.com. Diamonds, no vowels, all small case, you know. Hebrew don't have vowels. Don't put any I's, don't put any A's, don't put any O's. You've got it. dmnds2001 at yahoo.com. I'll send you the PDF. A geological assessment of American survival. This document is so old, it's like on mimeograph paper. It's on mimeograph, black and white. You can see the antique splotchy from running it through a mimeograph machine, if you even remember what that is. And there's maps on there of I've said this before, about a triangular area from the East Coast to the Ozarks. And what shows on here is not quite right. And these are just, everything's approximate. You know, when you start drawing lines across, you know, I can do it right here with my finger I showed you. Nothing to it. Doesn't really mean a lot, but it's an approximation. But that line, that triangular region from like South Carolina to the Ozarks, the point, the small apex of the triangle on South Carolina, and then getting wider as it comes over to the Ozarks. Fascinating that it's about exactly what you see on these maps. And I've said that before, so I'm just not going to belabor the point. You know, wind currents and everything else, volcano, nuclear, blah, 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 and, you know, all that good stuff. And, as I said before, 2 things, water and electricity. Water and power. Water can be split and made into 1 gallon of water. 1 gallon of water is 5. No, I'm sorry. Don't exaggerate. That was an accident. It wasn't an exaggeration. 1 gallon of water will produce 2,000 gallons of fuel. So, HHO, and we've done it, and it's easy. You know, it's not easy to get it to the proper proportions and blah 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 to make it run an engine. It's easy to make it run an engine partially, but not wholly. Anyway, you know, bunny trail. All right. So anyway, the point is that, you know, electricity and water. You read of Fort Masada. Read of they had cisterns. You got to have water. You know, Leningrad, the siege of you know, this and the siege of that, and Gibraltar. You know, just all the different cities that have been under siege over the years, and you got to have water. You got to have water, and you got to have food. Well, think about it. Lots of rainwater. Catch it, and if you can support yourself on the rainfall in New Mexico in an Earthship home, I'll be thinking you can do it in Missouri. You know, you can get water out of the air. Very humid here. Put up an atmospheric collector. Bake one. They're easy to make. Pile rocks up. That's an atmospheric collector. Anyway, I don't need to get into all the little details, but in addition to rainfall, you have the rivers and lake systems, and you've got streams and ponds and, you know, creeks, and, you know, dig a hole in the ground, you got water. My son buried his truck up to the hubs one time, and 6 years later, the water was still there. Never dried out, because there's a spring uphill somewhere that was soaking the ground. My friend planted corn there. It died. It drowned. Can't plant corn there. Won't live. Anyway, aquifers, under the entire region. Look at a map. Probably the only, I don't know, it's probably the only place on Earth like that, I would say. The exact footprint of the Ozark Plateau is the exact outline of the aquifers. The entire plateau has aquifers. That means the entire plateau has aquifers underneath. That means anywhere you drill a well, you can get water. Okay? And then, of course, you got the springs. I'm not going to go into that. Where does the water come from? I don't know. I don't know either. But it's cold. It's ice cold. From springs so deep and water so cold that drought does not affect them. Very mysterious. All right. Volcanoes. That last one, I said before, was the storms, the wind patterns, superstorms, geostorms, whatever. Straight line winds. Put them all together, and that's what this looks like. And the little tiny green thing there is just about what that map was showing. And I think it's looking a little bit farther up than I remember that. The other one was almost exactly equal coming down. So, but anyway, and like I said, these are all just approximate. But if you look at that, do a screenshot of that, it definitely takes in, the Ozark Plateau. It obviously would. So, wedge-shaped pattern, George Washington's vision. And then you put it, just isolate it, the green only. And I should have had this one first, but there's what it looks like. So the other one pointed definitely to South Carolina, not way up that far north, but irrelevant, totally irrelevant. People think the plateau, it's flat. I don't want to go there because it's flat. Oh my word, people. Come on. Extract cranium from rectal defilate, as Bogrites would say. Need a expensive operation, a rectocranial extraction. Hear the loud pop. Oh, I got to show you this. This guy would actually do this while driving. He was a guy that taught in plain view a lot of my survival thinking, or some of it goes back to him, look at everything, and things have double purposes. What can you use that's in plain view, IPV, but that means pull your head out of your ass and look around, and that's what people need to do. I see this happening, and I knew it was going to happen, and I made up a saying, and I've quoted myself hundreds of times. A lot of people are going to die because they thought they were smart enough to think for themselves. And very, very, very few people are. I know some very intelligent people that I consider highly, highly intelligent, that are highly intelligent, that are more intelligent than me, far more trained than I am. But their basic thinking pattern, skills, reality check are totally flawed. In some cases, they might be extremely intelligent. The guy I started telling a story about a while back. The young man that talked to me for like 20 minutes, and he said, "You're a living liability because of all the information you have. If you die, what's going to happen to that information?" I'm like, goes away. I guess God will have somebody else to figure it all out. But thereafter, that was at a feast day, like Passover, the very first Passover I did at that church. So he came for quite a few of them, and we would sit down and we'd start talking. This happened every single time. We'd sit down and we'd get right into a conversation. I mean, just hot and heavy, and just talking, and about 45 minutes. It would take about 45 minutes into it, and I'd remember, oh, that's right. Grant thinks he's smarter than me, and he wasn't. He was a genius in a lot of ways. He did robotics, construction, miniaturized, robotic stuff. Probably the guy that built a lot of these slaughter bots or something. That's the kind of thing he was doing. But, in a lot of ways, no. He just, people have screws loose. They cannot think rationally and consistently. So there's a statement by Robert Heinlein. I've tried to quote it before, and I can't quote it quite by memory, but it says, most people don't think. The few people who can think don't do it very often. And those who do think, the people who think consistently, clearly, rationally, objectively, can actually evaluate their own thinking, are the only people who matter. The only people who matter. Now, the other day I read a thing by about the come on now, let me pause it. Stupid refrigerator just started squealing. All right, it stopped squealing on its own. The Grand Solar Minimum channel. They say, and it's a really clear statement, really good statement. The crazy people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world, are the people who change the world. I mean, one of the most awesome examples in all of history is Martin Luther. He's standing before the diet of worms, and they weren't trying to make him eat worms. It was just it was a court, and he was ordered to recant his writings. Now, he knew that death was on the line. Other men had already died, burned at the stake. It was a good one, Hugh Latimer, and Master Ridley. And the one said to the other, "Play the man, Master Ridley." Latimer said to Ridley, "Play the man, Master Ridley, for we shall this day light such a fire as shall never be extinguished," because they stood for the scriptures. And I read the poem the other day about the Covenanters. So that's how you change the world. You got to be crazy to change the world. In fact, I am going to read a poem in a minute. I'll pull it up, because it was a bunch of crazy ass people. Not too many of them. 21 men. It's a poem that my son, Ian Edwards Diamond, wrote, and we wrote it together. My 3 sons are named after my 4 sons. One passed away. Are named after famous Christian men. Jonathan Edwards. Ian Edwards Diamond. Ian is a Scottish word, English word for John. Jan. If you're Norwegian, it's Jan. If you're English, it's Ian. Or Scottish, it's Ian. Ian Murray. Anyway, David Brainerd Diamond. David Brainerd would have been Jonathan Edwards' son-in-law. He was engaged, or was going to marry, Jerusha Edwards. He died at the age of 29 because of his prayer life. And then Isaac Watts Diamond, the famous hymn writer. And then, of course, Jason Newton. Long one. That's a long one. Long explanation there. He died. We were going to name him Samuel Rutherford. And I know, we both hoped that we'd have another son. And we didn't want to put Samuel Rutherford in the ground. And we didn't really want to put John Newton in the ground either. So we liked the Newton because he's an amazing grace and all that. And great man, great person who was converted from being a slave trader to the Christian faith and wrote of course, Amazing Grace. Anyway, but yeah. So you got to be crazy to change the world, and that's what the Grand Solar Minimum people said. Be crazy. They're the people that change the world, no question. And am I saying I'm smarter than anybody else? No, no, no. When I say a lot of people are going to die because they're smart enough to think for themselves, that's me, you know. I recognize that. That's why I'm where I'm at. I did not do what I thought was the right thing to do. I did what I was advised to do. Go east. You got to have water. You got to have water. You got to have water. You got to grow your own food. Most preppers, 99% of preppers out there have no French word fracking. They're fracking on the dotted craton line. So you know what I'm trying to say there, but you know they have no flipping, fracking, flying fig of an idea of anything of the first initial foundation of prepping. Prepping is food storage. You know, prepping is bottled water. Prepping is lots and lots of toilet paper. Yeah, that's really important. It is. I mean, in a sense, you know, sanitation is important, but there's other ways to deal with it. Like I said, an 8 SQB lab bottle. Wish I had one sitting here. I'd squirt you with it. But they have no idea what food production actually entails and what having water, how important that is. There's preppers out here living on bare land with no well and no intention to ever drill one. They're content, and it's okay. It's a way to start out, of going over and getting water in a tank from somebody else's farm. Well, what happens when you have no gas and you have no way to get water other than on your 2 feet and a bicycle, and you have goats and you have animals to feed? You're SOL. You are up a creek without a paddle. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pull that poem up. Hang on. Be right back. All righty. I will not go into a huge, long story about this. I don't know, pushing an hour here, but whatever. I don't think there's any limit once you get past the 15-minute mark, so whatever, we'll see. The picture here is that Richard Cameron and his brother Michael were part of the Covenanters, and Cameron was a leader. In fact, until recently, there was one of the greatest divisions in the English army, or battalions, or whatever you want to call them, regiments, I believe, the Cameronians, in a lot of famous battles, and they were just, have a real history of fighting. So you'll get the story here, but basically they wrote up a Scottish Declaration of Independence. It was called the Sanquhar Declaration. This is what our American Declaration of Independence, some of the roots that it was, it was watered with the blood of these men. Okay, they gave their lives for this, for the idea of religious freedom, and that the law, the Word of God, was king. The law is king. And that their saying was no king but King Jesus. So, and these are one of the first people I thought of when I started hearing about sacred name and this and sacred name that, and I was like, because back then maybe people still do it. If you use the word Jesus, you're going to hell. You have to say Yeshua, or you have to say Yeshua, or you have to say whatever the current flavor of the sacred name is this week, and it changes virtually every month. I just heard a new one. Anyway, these men gave their lives for the name of Jesus. And until I ever hear of one person willing, that has the guts, the backbone, and the balls, that is a sacred namer, that is capable of doing that. When the first martyr, I don't think there has been one. There might have been. I don't know. I don't think so. Or miracles and all the other things. It doesn't compute. We have 2,000 years of church history, and some monkey head, some brainless idiot comes by and says, "Oh, you got to pronounce it this way." Sorry, I mean, I have nothing wrong. I have nothing against using the names, but when I hear one virtually every single month, and everybody starts pronouncing it new every single month, it's like, see, he's had 17 names, 17 sacred names since I first started hearing about the sacred name movement. And every one of them will damn you to hell for using a different name. Sorry. Little pet, whatever. Soapbox. Pet peeve. Bunny trail. All right. So, these guys watered the ground with their blood. They believed what they did, and they were willing to die for it. And but what they did was insane. They wrote up the Sanquhar Declaration of Independence. They wrote in to the town of Sanquhar, and they posted it. And it was a declaration of war. Now the king had 10,000, maybe 20,000 heavily armed, bloodthirsty dragoons. 21 men rode into a town and declared war on the king. Guess what? They won. Eventually. So the scenario here is that this guy, Alexander Peden, Cameron was called the Lion of the Covenant. Okay, he was the leader. He was the military, the powerful warrior type. And Alexander Peden was this old man. But he was a prophetic type. He knew when something happened. He knew when before somebody was going to die. I don't even want to. I'll tell some of those stories later. I remember one time he was running on horse. He was being chased by a bunch of dragoons, and he rode around a hill, and he just laid down and threw his cloak of many colors, his plaid, over the horse and him, and he leaped. At one point, he leaped a chasm that they didn't dare leap across. But at the one point, he just said, "Lord, cover poor old Sandy." And they rode right by him and didn't see him, just invisible. But he was a very prophetic, very very awesome old man, white-haired man, probably about 70 or 80 at this time. And he's leaning on he's sitting there on the Cameron's tombstone. So, with that said, I'll read it and then I'll maybe make some more comments. But, "Oh, to be with Richie," was the prophet's plaintive cry, as he sat in contemplation at the grave where did lie the prophet of the covenant, Richard Cameron his name, who rode into Sanquhar and boldly did proclaim war upon the wicked king and all of Scotland's might, and this with but a score of men who stood to do the right. They challenged all the might and power of 10,000 armed dragoons, and even though Cameron fell before past many moons, the wicked king and all his kin had perished from the earth, proving again the power of Yah and the need for men of worth, who living by Scripture will stand, and standing on faith will act, changing the course of history by standing on biblical fact. So, and that's what, it's kind of people that, you've got to do it, If anybody, if you, some of you are just fairly new, and I don't know me from nobody, but, man, if you knew what I'd been through, and how long this whole vision, literally a vision of the, what is that there? You know, concerning the Ozark Plateau, and I mean back to, you know, I mean things going back to my childhood. You know, my ancient family motto, and you know my DNA, and my, you know, the word diamond in Hebrew. I mean, just eerie stuff. I haven't had a lot to hang on to. You know, it's been a killing, really, literally damn near killing burden. You know, I've, you know, the thing about I love about Chronicles of Narnia and the Lord of the Rings is, you know, to me, because I've lived so far from reality. One day my daughter was standing there and I was like, I was just stunned by the thought. I went, if I were to lose my mind, I would die. I mean, you know, there's nothing left other than my mind. You know, it's all imaginations. But we're called to create, to imagine. I love that guy used that word so many times. We're supposed to imagine, image. We are created in the image of Yahweh. He spoke the worlds into existence. We are to speak things into existence, to create a new world. And that's what, you know, that's what many of us are doing here. Michael Peebles at the First International Goshen Builders Conference. We need to have another one of those. You know, Pastor Joe, come on, let's get going. Let's have something here. Don't want to do it with Ken Updegrove anymore. Just can't deal with that. And the people who have cursed me, you know, over the years, and we're sick and tired of hearing about your Ozark Plateau crap. You know, one of the three of the head honcho triumvirate that, you know, excommunicated me. Losers, you know. I have written on their hearts, on Judah's heart, with the pen of iron and with the point of a diamond. Ooh, boys, you got written to. So, but we need to create, and we can. We can create a different world. You go back to that map, think of that map there. There's going to be a remnant. And if the rest of the world, which is pretty much seen in the book of Revelation, okay, let's say we don't get the poofy presto pie in the sky, suddenly we're up there in clouds and playing harps and, you know, floating around doing nothing. That's what you typically think of when you think of heaven. It may be that we have jobs to do. It may be that what's going to happen happens here in this earth. The guy that berated me recently on one of the videos about flat earthers demonic, you know. Get this, you know, people who believe in the fairy tale Walt Disney Hollywood fable of a spinning ball. I mean, every movie you see, it's in there. Every cartoon. Realize this. Walt Disney was one of the 6 satanic people who concocted and purported the globe to the modern populace. What was he before that? Military intelligence. Disinformation. The hell do you think he's doing there? Why do you think he's where he's at? Why do you think he did what he did? Real purpose in it. The Satanist, Aleister Crowley, and, you know, Jack Parsons, JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Jack Parsons Laboratory, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Yeah, right. Mr. Satanist. You know, Arthur C. Clarke. And who's the other? Oh, yeah. L. Ron Hubbard. You know, science fiction writer. 2 science fiction writers. Concocting other worlds, aliens, and all this other garbage. You know, Satanists. Every one of them. So, that is a false paradigm. It's a false world. There's nothing there. Flat Earth is demonic. Yeah? Well, you know, it's ludicrous. You know, it's utterly ludicrous that people believe what they do with no evidence whatsoever. But apart from the no evidence situation, in other words, in the last 3 years since I've looked at this, there's not one shred of hardcore video evidence, measurements, photographs, anything has been brought forth of curvature or anything that remotely approximate, give evidence of that. But anyway, what I was going to say is that the idea of proof is one thing, but go back to the scriptures. Okay, what was, I asked the guy, I said, do you know how the earth was created? Do you know when the earth was created? You have 7 days of creation. I think everybody understands that. But there's kind of the assumption that the earth was created during that time. Not so. The earth was without form and void. Okay. The Spirit moved upon the waters. It was already there. So on the first day, light. Day one, light. Let there be light. Spoke it into existence. 2, the firmament. Entire second day of creation was creating the firmament. Is that important? Psalm says the heavens declare the glory of God, Yahweh, and the firmament showeth forth his handiwork, proves his handiwork. It displays his handiwork. It displays his craftsmanship. It displays his majesty. People that believe in a globe don't believe in the firmament. They don't know what it is. The whole second day of creation is just shot, gone. As is the first day of creation. Light. Yeah. The sun, the waters were separated on the third day, animals, creepy crawly things and all that, fish, birds. Fourth day, sun, moon, stars created. What did the earth revolve around the first 3 days of creation? The light of day one is not the sun. So, the earth was not created. It already existed. So, anyway, the things that the Bible speaks of don't exist in the paradigm of a globe. And the man the 2 science fiction writers, Walt Disney, Werner von Braun, the father of NASA, the father of modern rocketry, the man who put us on the moon, who was the spokesperson, the head, the talking head, the genius who concocted this whole thing. On his gravestone, he instructed his wife to put one thing and one thing only, and that was Psalm 19, verse 1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament, the dome, the rakia, declares his handiwork. You look up the Hebrew word in rakia, the Hebrew word for firmament, take you about hours just to even begin to study it. You could have a degree in it. It's complicated. It's scientific. It's solid. Why, after we went to Antarctica, did they start shooting nuclear warheads at the sky? And they named the missiles Thor, a false god. What does Thor do? He's got that big hammer that breaks things. Yeah. Trying to break it. Did not succeed. Will not happen. So, anyway. Little, diatribe there, but hey, that's a freebie. Okay. We need to be crazy. We need to think. We need to believe have faith to believe the reality of the unseen world, and to be willing to go over there like Bridegroom and stomp on that fire and burn our feet and cause some freaking pain and the stench of burning flesh and wake some people up. That's what happened. She put some incense, some druggy incense on the fire, and it was real sweet, and then she started playing this little lyre thing or whatever, flute or something, I don't remember what it was, but it was a musical instrument, and started just, you're getting sleepy. Oh, you say there's a sun. Well, that's just these lamps, and you're just making it bigger in your imagination, and you're Aslan, oh, I have a kitty cat, and you're just making that kitty cat bigger, and your kitty cat's not real. My kitty cat is real, and my lamp is real, you know. So, no, there is an unseen world, and that's why I so identify with and gravitate to fantasy things, because they're more real. The Chronicles of Narnia are more real to me, and I've lived there. I believe in that world more than this world, the world that I'm in right now. Narnia is realer than this world, in the sense that this world is exactly what Bridegroom said, a dark pit of a kingdom. And if it isn't, and if this is the real world, hey, I'd rather just be gone. You know, I will believe in Narnia. I'll believe in Aslan. I'll believe in Jesus. I'll believe in the coming kingdom. I don't want to believe in this world. I never have, and I never will since becoming a believer. I mean, I've been in it. I've been drenched in it. I've been soaked in it. I've been walked through the filth and the mire and the septic tanks of life. You know, I've been there. I mean, I admit that. I'm not a holy man. You know. And in the movie, Ephraim's Rescue, this woman says, "You're a holy man." I mean, he supposedly anointed people with oil, and this one guy came back to life. You know, he raised from the dead. You know, but this woman that goes, "You're a holy man." He goes, "I have so many faults, I can't remember them all." You know, no, I'm not a holy man. I'm just doing what God's given me to do. So that's all I'm doing. I'm not a holy man. I'm not anything great. I'm not nothing. I am a nothing. I'm a nobody who has been nowhere and done nothing. You know, but God uses the nothings of the world, to bring to nothing the things that are. And it amazes me. It is just so thrilling. When I found aircrete, and I took a couple days off, I said, you know, I gotta take a break, or I'm gonna just crack up, pushing too hard. Took 2 days off, read a book, I don't remember what it was. I watched a movie. I remember it was The Martian with Matt Damon. You know, bogus fiction, you know, fantasy, that there's a Mars out there that, you know, is a planet. But anyway, when I came back to reality, I knew about aircrete about a year, maybe a year and a half before that, but boom, that's it, you know. I mean, for 18 years I've been studying, trying to figure out alternative homes, earth-friendly, earth-sheltered, you know, da-da-da-da, because what I saw in my vision was an invisible underground home, a hobbit home. And so every one of those things, it was like, is this it? Could this do that? No. Aircrete, yes, this can do it. Okay. They can build those homes ahead of time for refugees coming in. They find a home, it's theirs. You know, it's done. I go to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house are many mansions. Why do we think that is some mystical, magical thing in the sky? It may not be. We may have work to do here, like build a whole bunch of houses. Let's make a difference there, you know. At least if nothing happens, and if he doesn't return, and if things don't get better, and this Armageddon line, Snowmageddon, grand solar minimum is coming, we better be underground. We'll either be living underground or probably dead in a lot of cases. Crushed houses and, you know, dead livestock and whatnot. You know, we need to be making some changes, and it'll be to our benefit regardless. Like I said, you know, don't get in wrecks in your car. Get some auto socks. Don't slip on the ground and fall and get put into an old folks home. You know, wear traction on your feet. You know, all kinds of ways to beat these things, efficiency, build a rocket stove. Aquaponics, greenhouses, you name it. Underground greenhouses is the best. But anyway, all those things, know how to store food, smoke it, dehydrate, pulse, huge, 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 huge. Book of Daniel, pulse. It can be done. The formula has been hacked, and the guy won't share it, which sucks big time. But one time I heard him explain it, and at least I got that down. So anyway, we can make pulse. Fermenting, canning, I don't think much canning, but I mean, it's you can do it. It's good. Fermenting is far better. Kefir, on and on and on. So, all right. Enough. Okay. This is Jerry Diamond. If you're listening to this, you are the remnant.